Mickey's big hand is on the 12 right now, which means it's time to start the meeting. A few announcements as usual. Number one being volunteers. We're looking for volunteers for the train show and sale coming up on March 19th. Is everybody in the room on the volunteer list here? Anybody want to sign up right now? Give me their name. Save you the trouble of having to email or my contacting you personally at your house. And then next Saturday, same time, same place. Don't forget our hybrid meeting. You can come to the 600 room in person and give everybody a hug, socialize, no snacks, but you can socialize, or join us on Zoom right here, a hybrid meeting. And during the meeting, whether you're in person or on Zoom, you'll be able to hear Bob Dawson's. He mentioned a little bit about it if you'd joined earlier. Louisville's Forgotten Railroads next Saturday, directly after the meeting, not to be missed. And of course, just a reminder that next month in this time slot, everybody's looking forward to it. Time to share some bull. So it'll be a good time for Mr. Lasher to tell some of his stories. So we're going to start off today. We have two presenters only today, and we're going to start off with Gary Dean, who is a new member of the division, although he's not new to many of you. He's going to be giving us a brief but interesting tour of his new layout he's building at his new layout room in his new home. And then we're going to have a presentation from Kevin Jones about 3D printing, which is an interesting subject, much popular. So right now I'm going to turn it over to Gary, and it's yours, Gary. Thank you for presenting today.
No problem. Good afternoon, everybody, and hello to all of you I haven't spoken to or got a chance to meet yet. And I've really had a good time being in the group so far, and have already volunteered for the meeting, or the sale. So hope everybody else jumps in and does it too. Just want to kind of show you around what I got going. My layout room is it's a detached garage that was never really a garage because the front of it doesn't go out to the street. It's 24 by 20 outside dimensions. Inside dimensions are, of course, 23 by 19. And the layout itself is 17 and a half feet across the back, which will be my west side. And then across the southern or north side over here, it's going to be 17 feet. And then across the diagonal of the trapezoid, it's 19 feet. And then about a little more than 12 feet coming up the other direction here. I have a peninsula in the center that will be completed at some point, which will have two reverse loops, one from each direction. And we'll also have a featured trestle area where I'm going to, the plywood is marked there with X's, cut all that out. The canyon's going to go all the way down to within 4 inches of the floor. And I'm going to custom build a trestle to go across there. My access into the center is a swing gate, which I was helped to build by my buddy Bruce Sanders. And just unlatch it, it slides out. And Mr. Sanders also helped with the power transfer. He made brass tubing with wood washers in it, and then soldered a washer to hold the spring, and the springs they're spring loaded to where they'll go back in and out to make push contact with the nails over here on the gate, which I have soldered wires to the back of these so it transfers the power for the track from the main board over to the gate. On each of the tracks going across, I have soldered brass screws underneath the rails to hold them tight so they will never move. So that's underneath each rail going across. Still have a few more tracks to go that I haven't done yet. But back in here we go. This is the walkthrough to get back. A lot of this is going to have lift up scenery that's going to come up and lift up and lock in place. And then when I want to get access back here to do something, I can drop the scenery down out of the way, but it won't have tracks. And I'm going to do the same thing here in this area behind the swing gate. Over here is going to be a port area with a barges and a tugboat and a grain operation right here in this area right here. This is my main yard, which I've been working on. Made some attempts here, but have come to the conclusion that I'm going to do some changes in this. I'm going to replace this switch and this switch with a three-way like I have over here. Most all my switches are Payco and Shinohara. I do have a few Atlas that I've used in a couple places, but most of it's going to be the Shinohara. My power system is Digitrax. I do have the circuit breakers. I have the DCS 200 powering the first four, and then I have a DB 150 for the other side. And I'm going to be powering all of my tortoises with a computer power pack, which goes out to a transformer that gives you 3 different voltages in DC with a 12 volt, a 5 volt, and a 3.3 volt for access. Real inexpensive way to get power without using your track power. Over here on the side, I do have this is going to be a 8-track staging yard underneath. This board's not really in the right place, but it's just kind of sitting here. But this is a dead end staging yard. I'm going to have occupancy detectors on it, and I'm going to have trains that are sized where I know what will fit and what won't. And each of the tracks are insulated just past where the re-railing tracks are, so I can detect each one of these circuits separately. Let me know when the train's off that circuit in front of it and into the yard as far as it can go and stop. And then around on the other side, we'll, of course, I apologize, it's a mess, but we are in a construction zone. It's lucky enough to find a house that already had this built. Slow down. This was an afterthought that Bruce came up with. I'm going to have to take this out and move this down some. But up here, I've got this is going to have a town or business area more or less up here. I didn't plan on it being this big at first, but I have a lot of buildings and stuff that I want to use, and I didn't have enough room to put everything. So I thought I was going to give up some landscape area for some of these kits that I bought and saved all these years. So I am going to have track that goes across the back of this too, to serve some backdrop buildings. And on the back of this, I'm going to have a masonite backdrop that goes up so far. And on the back of the masonite backdrop, I'm going to have LED tape lighting. And I've got me an Alexa, and I've got it all set up to where I'm going to have it all on LED or Wi-Fi. And to where when I say it looks like it's getting late, she's going to dim the white lights on the ceiling, bring the orange and red up on the back of the backdrop, and let that stay on for about 5 minutes like a sunset, and then fade that out, and then bring the blue lights in the ceiling on for the nighttime setting. Also, one of the plans is when I say it looks like it might rain, she's going to dim the white lights, bring the blue lights up, and turn on a thunderstorm, which Mr. Bruce Sanders has made for me. So we have thunderstorm with 3 lightning bolts that come down from the ceiling made of EL wire. 2 strobe lights, and a sound system. And on top of the sound system he had given me with it, I'm going to add a surround sound system to it to where it kind of rumbles the room a little bit. So, and again, out here in the peninsula, this is going to be a reverse loop. One of them coming in from this direction to go, and then the other one coming on the bottom underneath. There'll be two different elevations on there. So, and below this upper section, I do have a 3-track staging yard that is a run through one. And so we're just getting going. I did get a piece of scenery out. This was a night. My best friend's house. Lives out in the country, and he kind of set up with me while I was losing my wife, and meant a lot to me. And so I made a little house, his house, and he's a pilot. He has a runway, and I got the little dirt where the plane touches down. I have a plane I put on it for him, and there's his garage and gravel road going back. So I wanted to make sure this would fit when I was putting this in, because I'd made this on my last layout. So, but down through here where the track's going to come down across the bottom in between the peninsula and this upper section, there's going to be a creek running along through there, and then a track coming around which goes to the one side of the peninsula, and over that trestle that will be over on the other side. And behind the trestle, there's also going to be a 36-inch waterfall that's going to go down. I have a technique that I've refined off of seeing different videos that I use angel hair and paint it with the rosin, and gives a real nice effect. We just finished doing that over at Bruce's house recently, and turned out really nice. He has a beautiful layout. So this is where I'm at. It's a long way to go. First thing was getting the walls painted, getting the clouds up, and then I added the track lighting thanks to Mike. We appreciate Mike was a big help in instructing me on what to do as far as track lighting and what to get and where I needed it. And we discussed it many times. And of course, this is such a sharing hobby. Everybody likes their input, and I've been so blessed to have so many people take time to give me some pointers, and it's been fun. So this is mine. It's the right now it's the Plywood Pacific, of course, but it is the future CSX Monon division. And I have one thing I wanted to, some cars I've got that are, buddy did some graffiti for me. There's USS Arizona, Memorial at Pearl Harbor. My favorite character, Foghorn Leghorn, with my name he put on that one. And here's my Roadrunner and Coyote heading for the tunnel. I've got a few others. This is some graffiti by Rick Dakota Kemp, who does some beautiful work. And but Ed, I saw your shirt, Ed, and I really like that. Let's see here. I think we got, I don't know if it'll zoom in good enough or not to see it or not, but that is the spirit of Riviana. That's a scale trains rivet counter. Beautiful engine. Well, gentlemen, if anybody has anything they want to ask, they're more than welcome to. And yes, I do have heat, air conditioning in here, and the furnace has a built-in dehumidifier on it. So I'm prepared.
Gary,
Yes.
Gary, Russell here.
Yep.
What think the guys would like to know? We talked about it the other night that you're running code 100. What's the your average radius or your minimum radius on the way up there?
Minimum radius on the main lines is 30-inch. Minimum in the yard is 28.
Okay.
But yeah, sidings I haven't really determined yet. I may, go a little tighter on some sidings, but my main lines are all 30 and larger.
Okay. And what I can't remember what you said the other night, coming up from your run through staging. What's the grade? What's the grade going up or down?
We got just a little bit more than a 2.5. just barely. It's about 2.68, I think is where when I figured out the actual math on it. So
Okay.
I'm just a little heavy of 2.5. I didn't want to go more than that, but I didn't have enough room to get that staging yard underneath and get the track over top without sacrificing.
Yeah. Okay, thanks. And right there where you're showing us, what is the plywood? What is that? 1/2 inch, 3/4?
I have a mixture of both in here. The part you're looking at right here is 1/2 inch. Some of the other is 3/4 over there, the whiteboard, and I transition from one to the other. This layout has been made with wood that has been recovered from another layout and my previous layout. I have not bought a single board. All of this was appropriated from construction sites where I work in construction, that I was able to pick up scraps and such, and from what I'd saved, and I've been very fortunate to have had, especially with wood prices, and still
Yeah.
have plenty.
So that's where a couple of the studs are missing in our house, huh? Oh,
Yeah.
yeah,
No,
yeah.
No,
And what's the height right there?
42-inch tall. Main line is 42. With the 1/2 inch plywood is 42.5. So, and then at my lowest point over in the lower staging yard, it's 35. The upper staging yard's at about 38.5.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
Uh-huh.
And I think maybe the members would like to know. Let's see. You have of course, the command station and a booster, and then what was it that you have your power district blocks? How many do you have on the layout?
Right now, there's a total of eight different blocks.
Okay.
I have 2 of the 4 on each one.
Okay. All right. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, it seems to have plenty of power to run everything. So when I first hooked up this upper section from here around, I did not have power from starting right here all the way around till I got to the swing gate. And before I even put any feeders on here, which I now have, but before I did, the train would have run all the way around without a problem. I was really surprised it would go that far without any additional feeders. But I do feeders on every 3 foot of flex track, and I spread the wire with a wire spreader and solder my joints, and then tape them off or heat shrink them, and that's how I do them. And like I said, on my power systems, what I'm going to do is this off a computer power pack that goes to this, and then my tortoises, I have Aculights that plug into my tortoises, so I have the use of all the thing, and it just unplugs out of it. If you ever have to change your switch, your plug, your tortoise, just plug it back in. Then I go to an electrical terminal to run all the devices, whether I'm powering the frog or running a dwarf light or whatever I do with it. So,
while we're on the subject of power, Gary, where'd you get that terminal block you have plugged into the computer power supply? You recall?
that was on Amazon, I think.
No.
Yeah.
All electronics has that.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it depends. You want to get the find out where your computer power is. Some of these are 20 and some of them are 24. This was set up for a 24. So I had to get another adapter to go from a 20 to a 24, which, I mean, this is like, for both of them, it was like, for this and this, it wasn't even $15. And a buddy of mine who tears old computers out, gets hard drives and memories and stuff out of them, he gave me that. So it's good. And this I bought. This was from Joey's material there at the sale. I know Joey was a member for a long time, and I know y'all were awful good to him and how much his family appreciated what all y'all did for him, because I work with his sister, Becky. She's been our secretary at work for about 12 years where I work at. And I know that meant so much to the family when Mr. Fields passed away. And I'm just ashamed, really sorry I didn't get a chance to meet him before he did. I wish I would have. We'd got along really good, I'm sure. But I just want everybody to know how much that meant to him, what you all did in getting his master model railroader for him completed. And that was a good thing. It meant a lot to the family.
And Gary, while you're right there, or go back a little bit, you tell the guys that right there to the right that how you paint your track, and that's
Yeah, I found I really shouldn't have done it this way. I took all my track outside and put it down on boards and painted it, and well, that's all good and well. I had about 90 pieces of flex track, and I painted 50 of them, but I didn't get the paint off of them right away, so now it's more work to get it off, and then I got to take a wire brush on a Dremel and go in and clean the paint off so I can attach and solder my rail joiners and also solder my leads on. So it was a learning episode.
Hey, Gary, Bob Francron, can you tell us a little bit more about your auto racks that are graffiti covered? Who did them again? And
Rick Kemp.
Is he local?
No, he's out of Chicago.
Okay. Do you know how he did it? I mean, is some of it decals? Is it all freehand?
Nope, it's all hand painted.
Okay.
Yep, he does fantastic. I don't know where my other cars are. I have a total of 7. I also have a Bob Marley car that's my Jamaica car, which says "We Be Jammin'" and has the Jamaican flag colors, the red, the yellow, and the green. And then I have a 911 remembrance car. It says "Never Forget" and has the downtown skyline of New York painted with the towers. And I have a double auto carrier that's titled "Blue Balls," and it's the Smurfs, Smurfette, and Papa Smurf, and Smurfette's holding a sign that says "We'll Smurf for food," but she has a look on her face that she's not real happy about it. And he also sent me one that says "Derail Cancer," with the E of derail being on its side. And I'd lost my wife to breast cancer, and he sent me that one. That was the first one I got. Of course, he gave me that one for free, and it got me hooked.
Very nice.
Yes, he does fantastic work. He has a Facebook page, Wild World of Model Trains.
Okay.
And he's a super nice guy. He plays in a rock band. He used to work for the Union Pacific Railroad. Now I believe is all he does is this. He has so much business now that he did President Bush's funeral car, and I've got pictures of it. And I mean, got the flag painted on the casket, has the soldier standing at the end of it with attention, with the medals on his chest. And I mean, his detail work is so unbelievable. He did a car with the word "snafu" on it, a Navy term, which means systems normal, all messed up. Well, all effed up. We won't go with that, but it's
What's the Facebook page again?
it's the Wild World of Model Trains, I think.
There's one sick puppy if he does that by hand.
Right.
Oh man, I'm telling you, he is just simply amazing. He
And his name one more time, please, Gary.
Rick Dakota Kemp, KEMP F.
Thank you. Very nice.
Yeah, he's a super nice guy. Yeah, I can't bring it up on the other.
If you get a chance to look it up, Bob Francro, maybe you can share on Groups.io your findings
All right.
in case anybody else is interested in
Okay.
getting some work done.
Yeah.
He'll do original work for you. Like I say, he'll customize whatever you want. One of the things I did was I had taken my wife to Hawaii twice while she was fighting breast cancer. And both times we went to Pearl Harbor, and I'd been in the Navy. So that car meant something to me when I asked him to build that one for me. Just Most of them are just for fun. He does fun stuff. He did one of the Blues Brothers that, I mean, it's just so unbelievable the talent he has. He really is good at what he does. The one that says snafu, for the A of snafu, he did the Grinch, and the face of the Grinch is smaller than a quarter and detailed. So, well, listen, I'm gonna shut up. Y'all got other people to talk. So
Before we leave you, Gary, many of us, as you know, we don't answer to the man anymore. We're gentlemen. We don't work anymore, but you're still working. And do you have any recommendations on any place to go if one needed some glass work or mirror work?
well, as a matter of fact, I could make a good recommendation. I'm the vice president of River City Glass and Mirror. We're in Valley Station. I've been with them for 26 and a half years, well, almost 27 years in May. I run the mirror and shower door division of the company, and we do glass and wire shelving and mirrors and glass and tabletops, furniture tops, and windows in homes that if they get broke. We're not Primax or Anderson. We don't want to come in and sell you a house full of windows, but if you got one broke or fogged up, we come change that particular glass. We do have a commercial division also that does storefronts and commercial glazing and doors and all that. And we do just a variety of things in glass. So, yep, been doing it for, like I said, I've been in the glass business for 36 years. I was at Auto Glass and Upholstery Company here in Louisville. Until they got sold out to Safe Light Auto Glass, and then I moved over to commercial glazing and been doing it for a long time.
Okay.
Well, I'm going to throw something in here, Ron, and I'll tell you the other thing they do is they make a piece of plate glass about, as wide and as long as you want that sits, and as thick as you want, that sits really nice, and it makes a great surface for working on models. Can't beat it.
Yeah, I agree. Jim Petro got me one of those years ago, and they're very, very valuable for like I said, doing some work, and it's nice that if you want to put some like CA on that it scrapes off very nice later on. Yep.
Yes,
I what you're talking about, guys. I've never heard anybody doing anything like that. It's just that really surprised me. It's on top of their work table.
Yep.
That's crazy. All right. Well, there you go. There's a source for all your glass needs.
I'll stick with my cutting mat. Thank you.
Well, I actually have my cutting mat on top of that, but when I want something absolutely 100% perfectly flat, can't beat that glass.
Yeah. Thank you for your tour, Gary. I appreciate it. We'll look forward to, let us know when you get some more work done. We'll come back and visit you again. Now, we also have on board and in the wings today, Mr. Kevin Jones, our resident mad scientist, who's going to share with us information about how you get into the 3D printing business, which is a popular subject these days. And here we are. Here's a picture of Kevin's workbench. Take her away, Kevin.
Oh, well, actually, if you'll switch over to highlight the phone one, it'd probably be better. Most of you guys have seen if you're on the Groups IO group for Division 8, you've seen the tender project I've been working on in O scale, which is mostly 3D printed. And some of you also saw this printer back in August or September when I bought it. I did a big unboxing and first print thing on the group as well. So I've been asked to explain a little more about what's going on with it, and that's what my goal is today. So I'm going to take you through the printer, how it works, some of a little bit, the theory of how it all goes together, and then kind of show you what it really takes to get this, to have everything you need to really work with this guy. So this printer is the Elegoo Mars 2. It's what I would call a second generation consumer printer. This is the version 2. There is also an Elegoo Mars floating out there, which is an older printer. It was made about 3 or 4 years ago. It showed up. There's a bunch of different manufacturers out there. So the reason I chose Elegoo, I've been lurking in Facebook groups for a couple of years watching these things go on. And the Elegoo company, unfortunately, almost all these printer companies are based in China, but they seem to have a very good reputation for after purchase support, which is one of the reasons I went with them. So this printer starts, you've got a green plastic cover, the cube. So basically that is a UV filter. So the principle of this printer is that it uses a resin that hardens from UV. So you don't want, stray UV light getting into the case and suddenly your tank of resin is just a solid block. So that's why this cube exists. I'm going to go ahead and take the top of it off. Woo. So, whoops. All right. So what we have here is you've got there's a plate right here. That's where your print basically appears. Down here we have a tank of UV resin. That tank is clear on the bottom. So I'll show you one of the tanks right here. As you can see, it's got a clear piece of plastic called FEP on the bottom of it. And below that tank, there's an LCD display, just like your phone, just like a screen on your phone. And then down below that, there's an array of UV LEDs that project UV light. So what happens with this guy, and I'll run them up and down a little bit, is that this plate will basically go down and submerge itself into the tank of resin. Then what will be projected, a UV image into that resin from the bottom. It will harden. Then the plate lifts up, peels that hardened resin off the plastic at the bottom, and then goes down again, but not all the way to the bottom again. And then prints creates another image and hardens that resin. So layer after layer, it builds that up. And eventually you come out with a 3D printed object at the end. So that's the basic theory of it. Getting going in it though, you got a few things to learn. Your first few prints may come out stuck to the bottom of the vat. It's just kind of a learning experience. Now, this printer has a couple of home aftermarket ads on it that don't come with it. One of them is this little piece here on the top here that allows basically you to hang it off of here after you're done printing, and allows the resin to kind of slide off and drain into the tank a little better. So that's actually a 3D printed part that's added to this printer. Another important mod I've added to this printer is this guy right over here. You see over here in the corner. That is a 12 volt, 100 watt heater. So the resin setting is a chemical process. It's a chemical reaction. There are some sort of photosensitive chemical in there that causes the resin to harden. So it's an exothermic reaction. It generates heat when this happens. And part of that timing of how long you expose the resin has to do what temperature it's at. And unfortunately, my basement gets cold enough in the winter that it's possible for the printer settings to go widely off, or even the resin not to harden. So I've added this heater to keep it at a constant temperature, and it allows me to print in winter and have more consistent prints. So that's the basic theory and operation of the printer. So I'm going to pull back a little bit now. So you buy one of these things and you think, oh yeah, I got this little desktop printer that's not all this big. Well, you wind up having to build a few accessories. So I'm going to explain what's kind of going on here. This is like an IKEA shelf system. And as usual, I bought 10 shelves to go with it when I was there last time. And of course, that's never enough. I need about 5 more for what I want to do. But what happens once you actually get the print done whoops, and it's stuck to the plate, is that now you've got to get it off the plate. So there's a spatula to do that. And that guy gets dropped into this tub here. So I wind up not winding on the floor or bouncing it off the wall somewhere. Then when the print's done, it's still covered with resin, right? You've been dipping it in this vat of resin, and this stuff sticks to things pretty tenaciously. So you've got to clean it off. There's basically two kind of resins out there. There's a resin that requires alcohol to clean it up, which the vast majority does. And then what they're called water washable resins. Alcohol still works with it, but you can use water and detergents to get the resin off instead of alcohol. And they become more popular, especially as the price of isopropyl alcohol has gone up tremendously. I mean, you could buy, a big bottle at Walmart for 99 cents 3 years ago. It's now nearly $3, I think, last time I bought one. So this tub here is basically the first rinse for the part. Once it goes through that, I've got this ultrasonic cleaner down here. That takes care of getting most of the material off. After that, you have to let it dry. And then sometimes I'll give it an alcohol rinse if I don't think it's completely off, all the resin's off of it. Otherwise, it goes into the curing chamber over here, which is basically a paint can, which has a strip of UV LEDs inside of it. That's hooked to a timer, so I can time how long it exposes, because if you over cure this resin, the resins, they become very hard and brittle and will snap very easily. Other things going on in here, this shelf here exists basically to hold the lid when it's off, and to hold my glove supply. So the resins, there's a zillion varieties of them. Some are more tenacious than others, but potentially they can cause allergic reactions, chemical burns, that kind of thing if they're on your skin. So you go through a lot of rubber gloves, make sure that doesn't happen. There's the printer itself. There's a temperature control for the heater. This is my storage shelf for unopened resin. Down here at the bottom is the storage shelf for the opened resin. And you notice that's setting in an aluminum tray, because of the resins I've used, I've yet to see a bottle that doesn't wind up dripping after you use it. So basically, once it's open, you're not going to want to touch that bottle with rubber, except with a rubber glove on, and you want to make sure it goes somewhere where the resin's contained, because it seems to always want to drip down the side. Garbage disposal for paper towels and gloves. Paper towel holder. You go through a ton of paper towels with this process too. This is kind of just a holder for various tools and supplies. This thingy up here was I printed off on my other 3D printer that basically is used to drain the vats, the tanks, when you get the resin out of them. So the bottle goes here. You have a paint filter that goes in here to keep any solid particles from getting in there, the bottle, and this holds the tank up at the top. Up here, this is the shelf is meant for unopened resin. And this is, the top, just general supplies. One thing I do need is another shelf to hold the printed parts while they're drying. So I feel another trip to IKEA coming on soon. So that's kind of the basic overview of things. I guess I'll go ahead and open it up to questions.
Where do we get an ultrasonic cleaner wrap?
Oh, you can buy them on Amazon. I bought that on eBay a number of years ago, but yeah, if you can get them on Amazon. I think I've seen one about half that size for about $60.
And Kevin, Russell here. The other day we were talking about if you wanted to send like your drawing or blueprint or whatever sketch to Shapeways, it would cost you so much, and then I believe you've said they keep the the drawing of it. But without getting too personal, everything that you have invested that the camera is looking at right now versus like if you wanted to send it to Shapeways, how do you come out money wise, I guess I want to say.
Well, money wise would be one aspect. So this setup here, I mean, the printer is about $200. The shelving system, I think there's probably $100 worth of shelves there. There's some miscellaneous items. If you look real close, you'll notice almost everything is on a rubber mat. And that's basically to keep from, if the resin gets on it. I have a UV flashlight I can harden the resin with and just peel it off those rubber mats. So, there's probably, $300 or $400 worth of probably stuff investment here. Overall, I already had the ultrasonic cleaner, so that wasn't a big investment there. Now, the Shapeways, I actually priced that little tender I'm printing out, that tender body. In their best detail plastic, it would cost $30 to print that at Shapeways, just that body. So, 10 bodies at that size, you've kind of starting heading towards paying for it, your own printer. But probably the biggest thing is the turnaround time. Typically with that detail plastic on Shapeways, I mean, like, I don't know, maybe 10 days is the best I've ever gotten turnaround. I've gotten Shapeways it's more like 2 or 3 weeks. With at least with this at home, I mean, it takes 10 hours to print that printer, that tender body. So in 10 hours, I can know whether I've got something or I need to make a change. And it's cost me, it's cost me a few cents in resin. It's that resin's about it. They basically runs about $50, depending on the brand. It runs about $50 a liter, plus or minus $10 or so. And you're using like milliliters to print that printer body out. So to me, the advantage is that if I'm working on something and you print it out and you look at it and go, well, that's nice, but it'd be better if I change this, and this. Well, at Shapeways, you're out $30 in 3 weeks.
Yeah. Okay. Well, good. And thank you for that. And I think we still have time that for perhaps the members that didn't see some of the experiments with the tender shell there. There's obviously, and you're a computer person, by advocation. So if some of the members thinking about possibly going this route after today, that how much of a learning curve that you had to go through, like you were talking about the supports and everything the other day.
Yeah. So let me see if I can get something in front of the camera here. So so the printer, this is the tender right here on its supports, and it comes off. It comes off. It's built up basically upside down. And comes up like that out of the tank. So everywhere that basically if it has to have something connected to it to pull it off the bottom of the tank. If there's a piece that prints that doesn't, then it's not going to print. It's just going to be a pile of goo in the bottom of the tank. So one of the biggest learning curves is that you get software with this printer, and it's great. You can pull your 3D object in there and tilt it and move it around however you want. But the important part is these supports that you put on here, and part of it is, you can let the software create auto supports. Well, sometimes those don't always work the best. And sometimes you have to make judgment calls on, okay, I need to do auto supports, and then I have to add some more supports to it. So to me, that's been like the biggest learning curve is understanding, how the supports work, what's the best orientation to print this, because originally, when I first started printing this, I tried printing it flat, right? With the, like that. Well, it turns out that the bottom of the tender, it has so much surface. I mean, the top of it, technically at that point, has so much surface area. It wasn't one to peel off the bottom of the tank. So, you had if you tilted it at 45 degrees, then you present like the minimal amount of surface area to the tank on every layer it pulls out. So it prints a lot better. So, that's just research on the internet and experimentation and trying that. And then the other thing I discovered, that if I print it, when I was printing it, I guess like that, let me back it up a little bit, where the round part, the round part was was the last thing to come out here at the end. I had to put supports on the backside to get it to print because it was an isolated island. Well, it took me a few prints to realize if I flipped it over, then I didn't have to do that anymore. The backside didn't need supports. I had to clean off later. So that's kind of the learning curve I've had with it. The other learning curve is not, unfortunately, not every resin is the same. So if you get a different type of resin, a different brand, the way it works is that then you have to go through a bunch of calibration prints, to figure out what's the best exposure time. How long is that UV lamp on to make the resin harden? And that can be annoying, to do that, because that can take, an hour or two perhaps for test. And it may take you a day or two to dial in, the new resin and figure out what the exposure settings are.
Thank you.
What about color of resin, Kevin? Is that a consideration, or you don't really care because you're going to paint it anyway?
I'm going to paint it, so I always use gray. But if I can, that I migrate towards the gray resin because they're going to paint the best as far as colors. You can get the resins in various colors. If you just go on to Amazon and type in, a 3D printer resin, and it will spit out tons and tons and tons of resins. And they come in some different colors, but there's just not a huge variety of colors. You got your basics, your yellows, green, your basic, primary colors, but you won't find, custom color mixes. Now, it is possible to mix different colors of resins together to produce a custom color. But that's probably more, if you're going to paint it, then obviously that's far more trouble than it's worth.
If it's not a secret, where do you like to get your resin at?
I buy everything off Amazon. I know of nowhere in the Louisville area that you can buy this stuff off the shelf. The closest place that I have seen somewhere you can buy off the shelf is Micro Center in Cincinnati. They sell 3D printers, Micro Center does, and they do have supplies for them there. But as far as a retail location in Louisville, I am unaware of anywhere you can buy this stuff.
Kevin, you mentioned, you can answer if you want to. How much was that printer?
The printer, the printer itself is around $200 plus or minus, depending on what it sells or not. I've seen as cheap as $185, as much as $210. But, that's just the printer.
I was figuring $400 or $500 on it, but they have, okay.
No, there are larger printers that do cost more money.
Oh,
The
yeah.
The printer, but yeah. So a consumer level, get your foot in the door, 3D resin printer like this it's going to be around $200 plus or minus.
Okay.
Yeah, but Mark, I think that the thing, and that's what Kevin was, saying, that all the support stuff.
Oh yeah, no. I realized that.
Yeah.
For the basic printer was, say 200, but then the ultrasound, the resin, the dryer, the it's various supplies. Okay, but for the basic unit, $200. Now, my next question is the resin. Mm-hmm. Is that more along the line of K-Rose syrup or just plain water? Is it thick or thin? Or
that is a good question, Mark, and it completely depends upon the brand and type of resin it is. I've got 2 bottles. I've got 2 bottles down there right now. The East Sun in the silver bottle is extremely non-viscous. It runs out like water. The stuff in the black bottle is much thicker. It's much more viscous. So it's going to be entirely dependent upon the brand and the type of resin it is.
Is there a strength involved? The one that's more viscous, would that be a heavier strength or?
Technically, in this case, it is. It's supposed to be a higher strength resin. It's not so much that it's high. I guess the question is it's not so much a higher strength as it's more flexible, because the killer with the resin is that if it's extremely brittle, then the slightest impact is going to break it, right?
Shatter.
If it has some flex, then it can take a hit and survive. And that's the big resin. It's not so much tensile strength that I can hang an elephant using a hook made from this resin. It more has to do with how the brittleness of the resin and whether it can survive an impact.
Okay, so this is ongoing development of the.
It's
10 years ago, nothing. But okay.
Well, what made this possible, these resin printers possible in a home environment, are cell phones. Because that LCD screen that creates the image that gets projected into that resin in the first round of these that were consumer loaded printers were literally cell phone screens, color cell phone screens. So when their resolution got high enough that you could make high enough and cheap enough that they were mass produced, you could then make an affordable at-home printer.
Okay.
And that's why you did not see these, 10, 12 years, 10, 15 years ago, is that the cell phone technology then, the little LCD screens just wasn't there yet. But that's what's caused these printers in the last decade or so to show up. It's the companion technology. It's the technology for the LCDs, because UV lamps have been out there forever. I got into this. UV hardening resins have been out there forever. Apparently, fly fishing, making fishing lures, they've been using UV hardening resins for years. And then basically it's just a simple mechanical machine. I mean, you're basically telling the plate to go up and down to a certain position, right? It's not anything fancy. They've been using, CNC technology for decades that work like that. So finally, the combination of technologies has come together to be cheap enough that you can make an affordable, home 3D printer.
And,
I know. I'm sorry.
and Kevin, as we were talking the other night, you have, this printer only does resin, and you have another printer that does styrene.
Right. It's called an FDM printer, filament deposit method. Basically, it is, it prints a spool that it looks like a weed eater line, but in reality, it's styrene, or there are several other plastics available, ABS, PLA, PET, that can be used with it. But basically, you're running around squirting hot plastic out of a 0.04 millimeter nozzle, and it works really well for making large prints, but 0.04 millimeters, while it sounds 0.4 millimeters, I should say, sounds really tiny, it's really a lot bigger than you think. So you can't do a lot of fine detail with that printer. The resin printer, this particular resin printer, can go down to a size of 0.051 millimeters in width, the little dots on the screen. So that's the smallest little cube you can print. It's 0.051 millimeters. And you can make some, very essentially, this tender is made up of, if you think about it, it is made up of tiny square blocks, basically, right? They're basically 0.051 millimeters by 0.051 millimeters by in this case, 0.02 millimeters, but it's literally made up of little cubes. So the cubes are so small that you cannot, distinguish them. at naked eye. I've gone down to this guy with a microscope, and you can actually see the grid of dots if you get down small enough. But yeah, so the resin printer's advantage is that it can print way more detail, but it's a more cumbersome process. As far as you have what they call post-processing. When the print's done, you're not done with it. You got to clean it up. You got to deal with the resin. You got to make it final, harden it, and these additional steps. Whereas like the FDM printers, you're squirting out a bunch of plastic, and it's pretty much ready to go when you're done.
Hey, Kevin,
Yeah.
Bob Frankrum, could you talk about the front end of the process a little bit? The actual software that you send, do you have to design the piece like a CAD? I mean, so you've got this tender here. I mean, did you have to go in and draw it up?
Yes, I drew the tender up in a piece of software called SketchUp. Let me move over. Let me turn the video off over here and move over to the other computer. See if I can share that screen. But yeah, I use a piece of software called SketchUp. There's a bunch of 3D modeling software out there for free. So SketchUp's one. There's Tinkercad, Autodesk. They push Fusion 360. Well, it's hard to find. There is a hobbyist license for that. You can get it for free if you're using it non-commercially. Let me see, back to the desk here. Yes. All right. So
somebody talked about the learning curve earlier, and to me, learning how to use any kind of a CAD system, you just don't sit down and it's intuitively obvious. I mean,
right. So let me see if I can get this up here for a second. Let me scroll this over.
We have you set up to share your screen, Kevin, if you want to.
Okay. Yeah. Unfortunately, the computer I have this on right now is I'm beating it up memory wise pretty bad right now. So it's a little unresponsive. Here we go. All right. So let me get this up. So get this back into a mode where it looks good. Come on, view, edge style. Take an X-ray off. Okay, there we go. All right, so let me go to the screen, share screen. Okay, I'm going to share this one. Okay, so yeah, see it now? Oh, wait, hang on.
It didn't come up.
Yeah, like I said, this poor computer. There it goes. You see it now? Okay. So
there we go.
Yes.
All right. So this is SketchUp. There's the drawing of the tender and the toolbox that goes on the back and the cap that goes on there. So all those parts. So yes, I've been using SketchUp since about 2016 or so. Initially to make my own parts and send them off to Shapeway to print. That's how I initially got started in 3D printing. So it became pretty obvious after a few trips to Shapeways that owning your own 3D printer would be a lot cheaper after a few prints and a lot faster. So I then got my first little FDM printer, the filament type printer for Christmas. And you saw that at, I guess, the show about 2 years ago where I brought it and was printing out crates during the show.
Yeah, last show before COVID, November.
Right, last show before COVID. So that's why I started off in that little printer and learned SketchUp to do the 3D drawings. But like I said, there's a lot of programs that out there at the end of the day that can generate the 3D drawings. It's just one of those things of learning something and playing with it and watching tutorials online. I mean, yeah, there's a learning curve. It's something you're going to have to learn. Obviously, the other option is buying pre-made or finding pre-made, files off of Thingiverse or Cults 3D. There are places out there either sell them or give them away for free. Unfortunately, a trend that we've seen lately is that people's work, even though they're licensing them for non-commercial use, their prints from their files they've sold are showing up on eBay and things. And I think we're going to see a lot of reluctance to share high quality 3D printer files with each other, just because of that reason. So once you get your 3D drawing made, then you're going to import it into a slicer software. Usually the printer will come with one for free. This printer I have now supports 2 slicers, one called Chaitu Box and the other one called Lychee. They both have free versions and paid versions. The free version is perfectly adequate to use. It's just that the paid versions have a bunch of more bells and whistles and features. Let me see if I can get one of those up. See if I already have the tender up in one of them.
Will the software tell you, for example, if you've designed something, whether or not it can be printed? You know, there's a producibility review type thing.
Right. Yes. It depending on what it is, it will tell you this. For example, the software. So I got to stop this screen. Okay. And now I got to share the other one. Hang on. Lychee. This already has a tender in it. Up in it, share. So, so what I found that this tender, when it comes out of SketchUp, apparently is not technically printable. It'll still print, but it has basically holes in it, in the back of it for some reason, where that skirt at the top and the body meets. There's tiny little holes, and while it still prints okay, I've found that sometimes you can have like weird artifacts happen, like in walls that get printed inside of it that shouldn't be there because I think the way the software works, when it slices it, it kind of starts from the outside and goes to the inside, and it basically says, well, when I hit a wall, I'm now on the inside. Here another wall, I'm outside. When I'm inside, to generate the image. And if you have an extra wall in there like that shouldn't be there, it gets all confused and can generate stuff that doesn't actually exist inside the object. But yes, there is a review. I have a tool in SketchUp, a plugin that basically it reviews the object and tells you have anything wrong with it as far as inside of SketchUp. But the problem is when you export the model, it creates something called a STL file, stereolithographic file. And the way stereolithographic files work, it models everything with triangles. The entire object is made of triangles. So that means math has to be done to generate that, and you can have round off errors and things that can wind up making holes that in the model that aren't actually there. Does that answer what you're?
Yeah, no, I mean,
Yeah.
to me, it seems like the real crux of this is the front end. I mean, the real challenge of this. I mean, once you have that, well, you can learn the mechanics of whatever printer you're using and experiment a few times and go through that learning curve. But I mean, you have to be somewhat sophisticated to create a model, a 3D model in software, and know that it can be produced. And I mean, it's wild stuff.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, there's definitely a learning curve, and if you're not, I would guess I say if you're not real computer savvy, then it's probably going to be hard. I think what we may see going in the future, and to me this is kind of the model, is that people are going to need to somehow protect and get paid for their work, right? The ideal model someday is you go to a site and you pay, so much for that STL file, and then you can print as many copies of this tender at home as you want. But the guy that made the file then gets paid for his work, for everyone that gets downloaded in such a way. But obviously, there's as with anything, you have the unscrupulous that take advantage of such things these days, and I think that's one of the things that's holding back. I think that kind of model where you have the free reign to go out there and say, oh well, somebody built an XYZ locomotive and he's got the 3D models out there, and you can pull it down and make it at home.
Right.
As opposed to sending it off to some factory to make a minimum of 5,000 of these that you may or may not sell, right?
Right.
But like I said, I think we're still a ways from that point.
On the, I have a question, Kevin, on the Mars
Yeah.
too. What size? Can I make a 50-foot boxcar on my Mars too?
An HO scale, you can probably get away with it if you print it at a very steep angle. I think it's about 180 millimeters high is about the tallest thing is when the plate maxes out. It can't go any
Yeah.
higher than that. So just like
Can't
this
be-
10, you know, where
It
I've got
can't be any bigger than the plate, basically.
well, it's not just the size. Obviously, it can't be bigger X and Y in the plate, but the plate can only pull up so far, right? There's only
Right,
so much
right.
track. So that's your
Right.
other limiting dimension. Now, this same company, Elegoo, makes another model called the Saturn. And just like Saturn's a much bigger planet than Mars, it's a much bigger printer than the Mars is. So yeah, it's about twice the size. So you can print something about twice as larger than you can on the Mars, but it also costs twice as much. It's like a $400, plus printer.
So if I was going to start printing big boys, I might have to be spending quite a bit of money.
Yeah, you probably have to buy something larger. But once again, it's not horrific. If what is a current run big boy cost? $400 or $500 now.
Yep.
So you're looking at the price of one locomotive buying a printer now. I mean that's kind of if you look at the inflation costs. For the price of one locomotive, I can buy a 3D printer. And
And Kevin, I think Mike might remember this, but I think 9 months ago, Athern, it's either a Challenger or a big boy, tried $900.
okay. Yeah. So at some point we're going, it's at some point we're going to price ourselves out of the hobby in a way. As in, you get to a price point where no one's going to want to order it. Right.
Hey, Kevin, a question.
Yeah.
Hey, Brennan
Mhm.
with a question. Your comment about the maximum size on your smaller printer. Could you take, say you wanted to double the size of this tender and it would not fit. Could you print two singles with a joining space on there where you could CA them together?
Yeah, certainly. I could slice it down into smaller pieces and do multiple prints would certainly be an option for something larger.
Yeah.
And
Hey,
in some
Ron,
cases,
you can make your 50-foot boxcar in two pieces.
Yeah.
There you go.
I think what a lot of folks are doing are printing parts with these printers, detail parts especially. So it's not the size printer would probably be very usable for a lot of work.
right. And that's something I did just this past weekend is let me pop that one up. Let me share it real quick. Is basically I let me find the right window here. Okay. So basically, these are an air intake and an exhaust, and I wasn't sure what size I was going to need. And one of the advantages here is I can, print this at 100%, 110%, 120, 130. So I could lay out, 5 or 6 parts, all different sizes, and print them out all at once. And then once they're done, I can decide, okay, this size really looks good on this locomotive. That's what I'll use. So yeah, for just throwing together detail parts that, you can't otherwise get, it really works well for that. And your timing, like I said, it takes 10 hours to print that tender. Well, these guys take about 2.5 hours to print. So you can know pretty quick, turn around pretty quick, on a Saturday. I think it took me 2 hours to draw these, so by late Saturday afternoon, I had my parts I needed.
So this has an estimate of 3 hours, 20 minutes, 7 seconds. Are these estimates pretty accurate in the software?
It varies. It's usually on this one, it's usually under about, 10% or so. It takes into account, exposure time and some of the movements, but the software can't know how long all the travels take for the printer. It travels up, then moves back down, repositions itself. So, if it has all the right data and all the right times for how long it takes the printer to make all it moves, it's accurate. But with this, what I'm finding is obviously it's not quite 100% accurate, but it's usually within 10%. And, if it says 3 hours and 20
Yeah.
minutes, it's going to be somewhere between three and 4 hours. I know that.
Yeah.
All very high tech.
Well, and the amazing thing of all this software is it's available free. So, a lot of it is, user supported. Some of it is, for example, it's corporate versions that they're letting hobbyists use for free because they want you using that. So when you do something commercially, that you'll want to use their software, kind of thing. I'm sure that's their motivation. So yeah, and that's to me, that's the big thing is that, if you really wanted to, there's nothing that would, it's probably a bigger pain than it's worth, is that you could build your own 3D printer from parts, probably for pretty cheap. It's just getting it all together and working, because you can buy the software to run it is public domain. You can you can buy the boards and the screens and stuff for pretty cheap. It's just that, by the time you buy all this and put it in the package, you're all on your own. That's a whole hobbyist maker thing. But it's quite possible to build your own printer.
New Heathkit version.
Easy for you to say.
But enough of that with Heathkits 30, 40 years ago.
Hey, I've built a ton of Heathkit stuff. And I had to see him go.
It's great stuff, isn't it?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, my old man used a Heathkit 303-401 combination for years. He got his worked all states certificate with it.
One of the first ones was, remember the digital alarm clock? Back when everything was still analog, and Heathkit came out with the digital before they became a consumer product.
Yeah, I never did have nerve enough. Heathkit would sell you a whole console model color TV back in the day.
Yeah.
That would take some nerve.
Yeah, but unfortunately today it's cheaper to mass produce it than probably to make the kit up.
Oh yeah.
That's the kits are mainly out there for fun these days, or it's something that's so unique that no one wants to you can't manufacture 10,000 of them. Nobody wants 10,000.
And
Kevin,
Kevin,
you're right that stereolithography has been around, at least 30 years. In the late 80s, 90s, when I was working for the Department of the Navy, we were trying to come up with a method to develop rapid prototype parts, and stereolithography was very cutting edge at the time, and it's sort of the forerunner. Like you said, it's an STL file that you use today, right?
Yeah, it's the same format. It's
Yeah.
an object
Yeah.
made of triangles, lots of little triangles.
Yeah, long time ago.
Yeah, so the technology's always been there. It's been there for decades. It's just never been cheap enough and on a small enough
Right.
scale to use at home, and that's what's kind of developed in the last decade or so.
Yeah. Crazy
Hey,
stuff.
Kevin, Mike,
Yeah,
hey, all of the connectors you have to situate the part when it comes out of the printer upside down,
mhm.
how big a deal are those that get all of those off and clean all that up?
Well, it's amazing if you put the part in hot water after you've printed it, after you're ready to remove supports, the resin becomes extremely soft and they literally almost fall off.
Huh. That doesn't wreck the part in the hot water?
No, it doesn't wreck the part. Sometimes they'll leave. I mean, it's possible for them to leave a little dimple or a little piece of themselves. If there's a situation where I know it's going to be critical, that I don't want that sprue to maybe leave a dimple, I'll cut it loose before I do the other ones. And then, you just sand the rest of it off, nip it off the pair of, flush cutting nippers and then sand it off in that case, if it's really critical. But for example, with most of these parts, the connector point is so small that, and I'm going to weather the crap out of these anyway. If it leaves a little piece or dimple in there, no one's going to notice. I mean, a lot of times by the time you paint the part, you get a couple layers of paint on there, you'll never even see it. Like, some of this stuff will come out with what looks like visible layer lines. And by the time you paint it, you'll never see them. They're so small.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good
So
question,
like I said,
though, Mike.
yeah, like I said, I haven't had it found an issue so far. You know, the bigger problem I've found is that when the support doesn't come loose and takes a piece of it with you, with it, it's the bigger problem. As in now your part breaks before the support does. That's usually the biggest problem. But like I said, you put it in hot water and that will make all the difference. It makes it so much easier to remove.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Great job of explaining everything, Kevin. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. It's you know,
I can see a career for you as a professor emeritus somewhere when you retire.
well, I'm afraid that ship may have passed already, but
Nice job. No kidding.
you're welcome.
Okay, fellas, I think that's it for today. Any final comments once again before we say goodbye to everyone?
Check your emails, Russell.
Okay.
Yeah, check your email.
Thanks for
Russ.
hosting, Ron.
Yeah. Thank you, Ron.
Everybody,
Thanks, presenters,
everybody
Kevin.
check your emails. You never know what's going to
Gary.
show up. Might be something important.